Hello everyone, it's Origani. In this tutorial, I'll be showing you how to make custom NPCs for BONELAB. If you've never made an NPC before, this tutorial is definitely for you. And even if you have made NPCs before, this video will also include a lot of pro tips at the end. First off, you'll want to download my NPC SDK in the description. It'll include these NPC prefabs. It'll be in a different folder, but they're going to be the same prefabs. I suggest for pretty much any NPC using the base Ford prefab because all of them are a little bit different, and early exits always have their upper body pointed down, and I've not figured out how to change that, so I prefer using Ford as a base instead so that you won't have to deal with messed up animations or sometimes even the NPC not registering that you're in front of them. Now I won't be going over crablets in this video because that's a little bit more complicated. Not really, it's just kind of a different process and different naming for the rig. So today I'll be using the base Ford NPC prefab. So go ahead and drag him into your hierarchy window. And I do suggest having a basic scene with lighting, a plane with collisions on it, and a reflection probe just to test out your materials and the collision of your NPC. And you'll want your model, which by now I assume you already have, but if you don't, a good place to look is Mixamo or Sketchfab, really any place that you want to get your model from. Now I won't be going over materials, but I do suggest using Lit Mass. The SOZ shader should come in the SDK, which by the way I am using the extended SDK for this because the NPCs use the extended SDK scripts. Now Lit Mass Opaque and Lit Mass Pose Space, I don't really know how to say it, kind of different, kind of the same, but Pose Space has a different thing for hit ramp, which this is for displaying the bloody decals on the model, which I've not figured out how to get that to work, but in case anyone does in the future, this is where you can change the color of it, I assume, and the gradient texture for it. Now BRDF map right here is also very useful, especially for skin. I do suggest buying Lux URP Essentials. It does have a skin shader, but here if you want something free you can use this. If you enable it and type in SSS in your search bar after you click select texture, you should see at least two, I think, if you installed the SDK right. And this will add subsurface scattering, which is pretty much just how light reacts to translucent objects. And it will make it a lot more realistic when you're using skin or cloth or even hair, but Lit Mass doesn't have transparency, so you wouldn't be able to use it for hair. Now drag your model into the scene. Now you'll want to unpack the prefabs of your NPC and your model. Just select both, right click, go to prefab, and unpack completely. Now name your objects to whatever you want, and usually what I do is I have the prefab NPC below the model just because of how many objects will be displayed here, but that's just personal preference and you don't have to. Now starting out, you will want to align your model with your NPC. You don't have to worry about the head or the arms yet, but right now try to line up the legs as close as possible and only line up the rig of your new model. Do not touch Ford's rig. Also, tip before I line them up, in a way to make posing easier, move your viewport to the side, and on the top right of the viewport you'll see the perspective options. Click Z and then press the cube in the middle for orthographic view. Now double click hips again. Now it will be centered and orthographic. Now select your rig and use W for movement, E for rotation, and R for scale. You will only be wanting to use E for rotation. You can also hold Control and click to snap. Now once you have that view rotated, you'll want to click the right gray arrow on the perspective widget. Now you're in side view. Now I suggest, if you want to line up the legs exactly like each other, click on one leg, hold control and then click on the other, and now you can move the legs at the same time. Now that you have your legs lined up, it's time for the arms. Close the leg objects to make it less cluttered, and open up your spine, your second spine, and your chest. The layout will be different depending on what model you have. Mixer mode, it will usually always be this. Now first, we're actually going to do the head. So open up neck, and then find your head. Now the normal way to make NPCs is to line up your model exactly to forward, but that creates weird rotations and stretching on the limbs, especially the arms and head. So what I do is I instead line up Ford's animation rig and physics rig to your model so that you have accurate collisions and accurate joint rotation. But in order to do that, you have to move the physics and animation rig exactly in conjunction with each other so that it doesn't break it. So now open your NPC prefab, go to physics, root, spine, chest, and then find your head. It won't be parented under neck like the Mixable model. It'll be head underscore M. Now open Brett enemy at neutral, SHJ NT group, main SH joint, root, spine, spine, spine. Spine top will be your chest. And then open neck 01, and neck top is the same as head underscore M, it's just different naming. Now click on neck top, hold control, and click on head M. Now you have both of them selected. Now drag them under your model's head bone. Now that you have them parented under your model's head bone, go to the right tab and zero out the position. Be sure to do that while you have both bones selected still. Now you won't want to touch scale or rotation. You can touch rotation, but be sure to zero out all of the rotation if you're going to input any different numbers here. Now go to side view. And now you can rotate the head bones to match your model's head bone. Usually it's perfectly flat like this, so I won't have to do anything in this situation. Now if your model has a jawbone, you can open up head underscore M, neck top, and drag both jaw underscore M and head underscore jaw into your jawbone and zero it out and rotate it to match your model's jaw. Just follow the cube collider right here. Reparent jaw underscore M back to head underscore M and head jaw back to neck top if you did the jaw. Now I'll close head M and neck top and drag head M back to its original place, and same for neck top. Now the head is parented, and you might have realized Ford's head didn't move, and that's because it's using an LED system. So what I usually like to do is just base it off of the colliders. So I'll go to Geo Group, open it, and then select all the models, and you can either disable them or delete them. Now for the arms. Right here, shoulder L and shoulder R are these 2 points. Clavicle L and clavicle R are not needed, but you can use them if your model has a clavicle bone, but it's not necessary. Now in the animation rig area, open up clavicle left and right. Now select left arm shoulder and shoulder L. Open left shoulder in your Mixamo rig and you'll see left arm. Left shoulder is the clavicle, left arm is the arm. Now you might not have to do this in your rig because it might not have a clavicle, but this is how you do it with the Mixamo rig. Now drag them under left arm and zero it out. Now I'll be rotating it to match the whole arm. Now with the hands, it's a little bit different too. Elbow underscore L will have wrist underscore L, which is a physics rig bone. And L underscore arm underscore elbow curve will be the animation rig bone. And it'll have left underscore hand underscore 1 instead of left underscore wrist. So only select this one and then drag it under your hand bone of your model. Now if you want to parent your fingers, it's a little bit different. The animation rig will not have any finger bones. So what you'll have to do is parent the finger bones of the physics rig onto yours. Now this is completely optional. You'll most likely want to do this if you're going to be using Ford's default combat stance, which is 2 arms up in a fist fighting pose, because you'll want your model's fingers to follow Ford's animations. But usually what I do is change it so that the NPC slaps, so that I won't have to do this and won't have to deal with weird stretching of those fingers. Now even if you do line them up correctly, I have had an issue where the fingers stretch out really long even if the fingers are lined up correctly. So I prefer not to do this, and I suggest not to do it either. But if you figure out a way to make the fingers not stretch, then it's totally up to you. You can do that. Now you can pose your model's fingers to Ford's fingers, but you can also parent each one under each one of your fingers and zero out the rotation too. Now you can't see, there's no collisions on it, so you can't exactly see if it's correct, so you'll kind of have to get. Okay, now that that's done, drag your wrists back into your elbows and your elbows back into your arms. Now collapse them and put them back in their original place. Now do that for the right arm. Now if you do make any mistakes in this process and you accidentally move the physics bone or the animation bone and not the other, then you can press Ctrl Z to undo your rotation or your position change, but sometimes Unity will bug out and not actually change it even though it looks like it, and it will break your entire NPC. There's no way to really avoid this. It's happened to me a couple times, but not often, so you won't really have to worry about it. Now the bones are aligned, so we can start working on collisions. For me, I won't have to really change any collisions here because they look good, but I will change the head, the jaw, and the chest. I suggest not changing the legs or the root very much because that can break animations and allowing your NPC to get up. So click on your physics bone, scroll down until you find your capsule collider. Press this button right here and edit your collider. Now for the jaw, you can position to your character's jaw if you have a joint there, or you can disable the collider and go to the configurable joint component and lock all the rotation axes. Now you can still leave your collider and turn off the rotation axes, or you can even turn off your collider and let it rotate, which I don't suggest though, because then the player won't be able to grab the jaw, it'll just be moving on its own. So for me, I'll leave it locked and leave the collider off. Now you can close Brett enemy at neutral and start parenting your model's bones under your NPC's bones. So I'll start off with the legs. Now before I move on to the rest, I'll go ahead and parent my model's mesh under the prefab NPC. So open back up Brett enemy at neutral and find Geo group. Now drag your model's meshes into GeoGroup. Now once your model's meshes are parented, go to the skin mesh renderer and turn on update when off screen. This will keep your model from randomly disappearing when you're looking at it from certain angles. Now for hips, or whatever your root bone is called for your model, drag under root_M. Now unless there's other bones here, you can delete your model's parent object. Now for the spines, usually I like to skip one since spine 1 doesn't actually change anything. So spine M would be spine, and chest M would be spine 2. Now it might be different for your model. Usually what I do is whichever bone's position lines up best with the spine, I will use for spine. Now this spine bone is right here, the originals is up here, and this spine is right here. So I actually made a mistake, so since this one is closer to the original NPC spine bone, I'll drag it under and drag this one back to the hips. Now parent your arms. And your jaw if you have one. Now to test and see if it all works and you don't have any weird collisions, config joint issues, or your bones aren't parented correctly, press play. Let it load and then switch back to scene view. And you should see your NPC laying on the floor like this. You can select the root and play with it. Just do this a couple times and test the collisions and see if they're good. Now that our rig is parented, we can look into custom properties. All NPC behavior will be under AI rig and behavior power legs. Now go to the right side and you'll see behavior power legs. For me it's collapsed, but for you it should be open. Now let's go over the basics. Default config, I suggest not to touch, but it's pretty much the default settings for each NPC prefab. Now these you won't have to worry about. I don't usually mess with these, but roam state is where you can start changing stuff. Roam speed is how fast the NPC walks if you have roam wanders enabled. Roam range is how far it will roam. I'm pretty sure this is in meters, the same that the default Unity transform is in. Angular speed is how quickly the NPC turns around when wandering. Frequency is how often the NPC will start walking around. So say at point 2 it'll walk around a little bit, stop, and then start walking again after a few seconds. And then here roam wanders is where you can tell it to roam or not. I'll be enabling this feature. Investigate range is the same roam range, which I have not really seen any difference between roam and investigate. You can experiment with it if you like. Now aggro state general. Aggro on NPC type. If you click this drop down, you can select which NPC types the NPC will try to attack. So here is the default forward configuration. If you want this to act like a null body or early exit or a crablet and attack the player and nothing else, I usually put it to forward hair and then disable early exit or null body or both, depending on what you want. Break aggro target distance is how far the player will be from the NPC when it stops chasing it. And break aggro home distance is how far the NPC will be from its original spawned position. And break aggro home distance is how far it can walk from its original spawn place before it stops aggroing. Aggroed speed is like roam speed, but when it's aggroed, so you can make it higher or slower. I suggest not making it too slow or too high, or else it might mess up the animations. And same for aggroed angular speed. Now you won't want to mess with any of this. Enable throw attack really only matters if you're using the early exit prefab. If you are, you can disable and enable its throw attack. Now you can change the throw velocity and cooldown and minimum and max range if you do use the throw attack, and same for its accuracy. Now mental state. This will be the state that it's in when it's first spawned. If you enable roam wanders, click here and set it to roam instead of rest. Now you can make it so that it's engaged, aggro, investigative, or mind controlled, which mind controlled I'm not exactly sure. I'm pretty sure they use that in the campaign, but I'm not sure. I just haven't experimented with it yet. So put it to roam. In local state, I don't suggest changing this. I'd suggest leaving it as standing. Now sensors, you can change its FOV. Now from my experiment, it doesn't really make much of a difference, and same for hearing sensitivity, but you can change it if you want and experiment with it. Now SFX, this only applies if you're using something other than the forward prefab. So this will be the aggro, unaggro, pain, attacks, all of that stuff if you're not using the forward prefab. Now health, straightforward. Max appendage HP, that's how many hit points each limb has until it fails. So like if you shoot forward's arm, it'll give out at a certain amount of shots or punches. So that's what that is. And then max hit points is overall how much damage the NPC can take and how much health it has. Now you can experiment with these. I'm not really going to go in depth with stun recovery or minimum spine head impact. Now I'm not really sure what those do, but stun recovery does make a little bit of a difference. I just haven't really experimented with it that much. Now disposition, aggression is, as it says, current state of aggro, will move up and down based on damage dealt. Irritability, non-functioning, so you don't even have to change that. Placeability, multiplier, decreases aggression based on damage. Vengefulness, multiplier, increases aggression based on damage. So pretty much is how aggressive it is. You can experiment with these. Now on death, you can call a certain event to happen. I won't be getting into this, but if you know anything about Unity and events, this might be useful for you. Now face anim, you'll want to open this. Now if face anim is enabled, then you're most likely using the forward prefab or the VR Junkie prefab, and this will be where you want to change your audio for your NPC. Now greetings, aggro, unaggros, pretty straightforward, all of that stuff. Attack 1S is the sound effect that your NPC will make when trying to attack you. Now all of this, I don't have any custom sounds for this NPC, so I'll leave them all blank by changing them to 0. So now the NPC won't have any sounds. Now here, aggro state, combat proficiency, you won't want to change, but aggro state, this is what I was talking about with the fingers. Fist fight will animate the fingers. Wild punch will still animate the fingers, but not in the way that fist fight does. It's pretty much just like almost straight fingers, kind of bent. I usually manually rotate the fingers to just make it look better so that it's not completely straight like this, but it's just personal preference. So usually I'll change it to wild punch so that the NPC tries slapping you instead of going in the punch stance. Now once you change that, you want to click it again and disable fist fight so that it'll only be wild punch. Now melee range and desired melee distance and melee cooldown is pretty self-explanatory, so I won't be going over those. Now engaged mode is what the NPC will do when it's engaged, so pretty much it's focused on the player, and if it's not set to aggro on the player instantly, it'll stand there and look at you like what forward does. So stay is just staying there, follow will follow the player, hide will walk away from the player, and mirror is what happens in the dungeon level of Boneworks where the NPC mirrors your movements. So I'll set mine to follow. And then engage speed and target distance and home distance is the same as the aggro version. And mirror skill is how well the NPC will follow your movements. Now, if you do change the aggro and NPC type, I do suggest changing something else too. So go back to your hierarchy, go to search, and type in trigger. Now click on the trigger, go over here, and right here is the alliance data. So right now its alliance data is set to forward hair. You can change it to the crablet, early exit, forward hair, which is just forward, nobody, forward short hair, which is the VR junkie, omni projector, and all of that. So this is what other NPC types will view this NPC as. So I'll leave it at forward, and then if you change this, you'll also want to change NPC type. So you can have it set to multiple NPC types if you like. Now, depending on your model and your materials, you'll like to set the impact properties. When you hit the NPC or shoot it, it'll spray out blood, but I don't want that since this looks like a metal object. So go back to search and type in impact properties. And that should be all one word. Now click on ankle L and hold shift and click on wrist R and select all of those. Now go to the right panel and open up impact properties, and surface data is what you're going to want to change. So click the circle here, and these are all the different types: bone, cardboard, cloth, bioluminescence, which is what the early access have. Zapper is, I'm pretty sure, what the nobodies have. I'm not sure. Water, wood, void, all of that. So what I'm going to use is metal surface, which the difference between metal surface and pure metal surface is that metal surface can be shot through with bullets so that you can put a knife into the NPC. Pure metal will not allow any form of bullets or knives to enter it, so it'll just block that, which I'm pretty sure it also means that it will not deal damage. I'm not sure, I haven't really tested that, but just to be safe, I'll use metal surface. Now, if you custom posed your NPC's rig to your model's rig, you'll also want to do this to fix the joint position in game. Click on physics, go to the right tab, and disable update joint anchors. Now go back to the search and either type in rigid body, impact properties, configurable joint, just any of those. For me, I'll type in rigid body and select all of the bones again. Now open up the configurable joint tab and zero out the anchor position and turn on auto configure connected anchor. Now all of your joints will correctly position themselves to how you want in game. Now, if you want custom animations for your NPC, this is how you do it. Open your NPC prefab and click on Brett Enemy at Neutral. Now go to the animator and click on the Power Legs Anim Controller. Click on that, press Ctrl C. Now go to any folder you want and press Ctrl V to paste it. It doesn't matter what you name it, but I'll name it tutorial. Now double click it and you'll see this. Now if you're not using my SDK and you converted a prefab from a RIP of BONELAB to your SDK, you'll want to put face to additive and right click muscle, make transition, and then click on idle 2 so that it makes a transition to idle 2. As you see here, muscle to idle 2 is repeated twice. Now I should have done this for all of the NPC prefabs, so if you're using my SDK you won't have to worry about this. Now the basics right here: Loco you don't have to touch, Death 2 and Death 1 are just the death animations, which I won't be changing, and Get Up From Back and Get Up From Face is the animations it plays when getting back up after it's fallen. I suggest not touching these because it can break your NPC and not allow them to get up. Idle 2 is the idle animation that the NPC is going to play. Zombie idle is the animation that'll play when the NPC is walking if you enabled wild punch instead of fist fight, so like what early exits and null bodies use. So idle 2 will still be used, it'll just be the default idle animation. This will be the movement animation for wild punch instead of fist fight. Now you can change these, it's a bit complicated though because it has idle to fist, fist to idle, the block loop, block start, end, and all the punches too. So I'm not going to touch that, but you can change it. Now the block KB_block loop will be the NPC blocking your attack, so their fists are up and covering their face. Fist idle will be just fists up, not covering, and it will be the animation that they play when they're walking around. Now all of these I have not been able to figure out yet, but these are engaged animations. So like Ford, if you grab him in game, he's engaged, he looks at you, he'll play an animation. Now some of these are unused, but I'm not figured out yet how to get this working with custom NPCs. So now usually what I do is import animations from Mixamo because they're all free. They have a lot and they're pretty basic. So you can import with skin or without, it really doesn't matter. Frame rate, just leave it default 30 seconds. And once they're imported, click on the animation file, go to rig, and change animation type from generic to humanoid and open up the file. Here you'll see Mixamo, and this is the animation itself. So you can see it works on the default Unity model, so it should work on your NPC too, and same for the idle animation. So for me, I'll click on idle 2 and drag the idle animation into this motion slot right here. Now I'll go to zombie idle 1 and drag the walking animation into the motion tab of zombie idle 1. Now save it and go back to your scene. Now click on Brett enemy at neutral again and drag your new animator into your controller slot of your animator component. Now you should have custom animations. Now sadly I was not recording for this part, I was just talking to myself the whole time. But here, if you want extra limbs on your NPC, then what you'll want to do is find your new rig's bones that you want to turn into extra limbs, and then find the closest physics bone to that limb, preferably the one that it's parented under, and then start from rigid body, copy the component, and paste each component into your new limb. So as you can see, I already did it, and you'll want to change the layer to enemy colliders because that's the same as the physics rig. And configurable joint, thumb 1 is parented under wrist L, so I'll put the connected body to wrist L, and thumb 2 is connected to thumb 1, and same for thumb 3, it's connected to thumb 2. Now you can change their limits. I suggest not changing motion and just leaving limits, and make sure this is all zeroed out and auto config. Now you can also go here and change brake force and brake torque. Good value is 10,000 so that going in slow motion doesn't completely rip off the limbs, but you can experiment with those. It's pretty much how much force it needs for the limb to detach to its connected body. So if I put the force to 100 or 1,000, then it'll just fall off of thumb 2. So this will just be like that. And once you have all of this added and your impact properties, you'll want to go to visual damage receiver and double click on this, and now it'll take you to the root of your NPC, and you want to go here, and in interactable host manager you want to add new interactable host. Now I have not done this in the past, so I don't think it's completely necessary for it to work, but just better be safe than sorry, because Unity is kind of weird sometimes, especially with interactions like this. I added 3 more and then dragged each new limb into this section. Now that you have all this script set up and copied to your new limbs, what you'll want to do is edit the colliders. Now you do need a collider in order for the configurable joint to work. If you're doing hanging attachments like I've done with my Modern Warfare NPCs, you can just make it a small box and disable grips just so that it swings around. But for me right here, I'll change this to match the fingers. Now right now it's in the wrong direction for the capsule collider, so I'll change it from X to Y, and now you can see it's correctly rotated. So I'll do that for all of them. And now I'll edit the colliders to match up. Now be sure to make the colliders not intersect with each other too much or other colliders on the NPC. So I'll be dragging this end roughly to the end of where you see this line, which is the anchor point for the configurable joint. Same for this one. And now I'll do it for the others. Now to test and see how the new limbs move, I can freeze the other joints of the body. So select the joints that you want to freeze. For me, it's going to be the spine and the arm. And go here, scroll up, find rigid body, and enable is kinematic. Now once you're done testing, you will want to disable that, or else your limbs won't be able to move in game. Now as you can see here, I actually did make a mistake. You'll want to freeze the root M physics bone too, or else the whole body will move and rotate. So as you can see here, you can rotate the wrist, and it's a little bit floppy, but the hands and fingers do move with each other. So as you can see, thumb is connected to hand, same for the other thumb joints, so they actually do correctly work. So now if the player stabs or shoots or punches this limb, it will also deal damage to the NPC, I'm pretty sure. Not 100% sure actually. I don't know if there's other settings in the behavior that I have to change in order for it to actually connect with each other. It's really complicated figuring out like all the mechanics of how the SLZ scripts work, but this still works as just having extra limbs here. Now as you can see here, I did what I was talking about earlier, where I manually posed the bones of the fingers so that they would be slightly bent so that they would look better in game when he's actually trying to slap you. Since I put the combat proficiency to wild punch instead of fist fight. And I also copied and pasted the components from that thumb over to this thumb and changed the configurable joint. And as you can see, I copied the components from that thumb over to this thumb, changed the settings, config joints, added it to the host manager. So now the NPC should be done. Just to test one more time, to check for any collision issues, I'll press play. And now you can see it ragdolls correctly, and the fingers do move like I kind of want them to. They're a little bit wiggly, but I don't care. Now that your NPC is done, there's one last tip for you. If you want to make your NPC bigger or smaller, which I do suggest not to make it that much bigger or that much smaller, just because of physics issues. If you take the root of your NPC, say scale it up like this, you'll see the scale. It goes from 1 to 1.6276, however much you scaled it. So if you do that, you want to copy this value, go to here and type in rigid body. Now say ankle L and ankle R are the same thing pretty much. They'll have the same mass value and all of that. You want to click here, hold shift and press 8 to get the star, and then paste in your copied value and press enter to multiply the mass by the value that you scaled, and then go and then scroll down to configurable joint and then find slurp drive, open that, and then click on maximum force and do the same thing and multiply your scaled value and multiply the maximum force value by the value that you copied. Now you'll have to do that for every single limb, including extra limbs. Now the extra limbs aren't really controlled by anything, so you don't really have to do that. You can just change the rigid body values based on however you want the rigid body to act. and just do that for every single limb until you have all the maximum forces and rigid body masses multiplied by that value. Now I'll go ahead and put mine back to 1. Drag my NPC into the asset browser, make it a prefab, go to asset warehouse, and pack the prefab. Once again, I forgot to press record, but if you want it to show up correctly in the spawn gun, you'll want to click on your spawnable, go to inspector, and then in tags, for me, I wanted to put tutorial, so it'll show up in a tab called tutorial in the spawn gun. NPC, you should put that for all of your NPCs. It'll just make it show up in the NPC tab. Humanoid, you don't have to do it for all, but this is kind of a humanoid shaped character, so I put it there, and then I press generate packed assets, and then I can pack my NPC. Now, as you can see, if I go to palettes, it'll be in tutorial NPC, or if you go to spawnables, NPC, humanoid, it's also right here. Now, as you can see, the extra joints are a bit funky, but auto animation works. And I just punched my mic. Now, it doesn't really use much of the walking animation. That's just how it works, but it is using it right now, and it is different. So you can see this guy. Oh, okay. Yep, right there. He uses it a little bit. So let's see. If I shoot him, you can see the custom impact properties working. And right here, you can see compared to the legs, the joints actually line up perfectly. And sorry, my tracking is horrible right now. I don't have any lights on. And they bend correctly in the right places. And here is the custom limb. Now the legs, you can fix. It's by moving the anchor point on the configurable joint. But if you move it too much, it will kind of mess up the walking and getting up. So I usually don't do it, but for stuff like this, like Five Nights at Freddy's NPCs that I make for other people, I will change it so that it lines up more. Well, that's pretty much all there is to it. If you guys have any suggestions for new tutorials, or if you have any questions about what I did today, or how to do something with an NPC or something that I left out of the tutorial, just let me know in the comments. This NPC will be in my Discord server if you guys want to join. Link will be in the description, and have fun modding.